by the mouth of the Humber River as it flows into Lake Ontario, where the city of Toronto now stands. As you can see, it's not exactly a mighty river, but in colonial times it was one of the most important trade routes in the entire continent. And places like this meant a great deal to the French. If you look at the French and the English as they were settling the continent of North America in the 17th century, the French huddling along the banks of the St. Lawrence River in Canada, and the English settling along the Atlantic seaboard, you find they had two very different natural advantages. The English had the natural advantage of soil and climate. They had a soil and climate that enabled them to grow the crops, the rice, the sugar, the tobacco, the corn, that eventually made them very wealthy. The French, on the other hand, in terms of climate and soil, inherited mostly rocks and fir trees. This is a Toronto neighborhood called Baby Point, which has nothing to do with infants or nurseries or anything like that. It's actually named after an early French settler named Jacques Baby. He was around the beginning of the 18th century. And before him, on this site was the location of an Iroquois town. LaSalle himself made a number of visits. He passed through here quite a few times, made a number of visits to the town. It's interesting to speculate if he were suddenly dropped here in the beginning of the 21st century, if he'd be entirely freaked out or not. On one hand, you can look at the architecture around here, and in some ways it's really straight 17th century France, with the stone facing of the houses, the gables, the leaded windows, the bay windows, and so on. Well, LaSalle probably would have been startled by was actually these lawns. What is interesting is not far beneath the surface of these lawns still lie the bones of the Iroquois. And it is a historic site in the city of Toronto, but you almost have to entirely use your imagination to sum it up what it was like in 1670 when LaSalle dropped by.